My name is Ellie. I am 12 years old, and I will tell you a story that you will surely remember. Not so long ago, I found out that my older sister's boyfriend has delved into the underwear of almost all the women in my family. You're probably saying, "What?" But I saw everything with my own eyes. And I even helped this guy with his dirty tricks. Later on, I, of course, told everyone the truth, but it was too late. Nobody believed me. What a shame. My sister's boyfriend's name is Pierce, and her name is Caroline. Caroline is already 18 years old. Pierce is a little older than her. My older sister is a pretty nasty person with an unbearable temper, and we are not close at all. So I have no idea how they met or for how long they have been going out together. It just so happened that on one lovely day, Caroline invited Pierce to our house to meet our mother. Pierce took his first meeting with his future mother-in-law very seriously. He was very courteous. He brought flowers for my mother, flowers and sweets for me, and he even found out in advance that I was allergic to nuts and picked up a box of completely safe nut-free sweets. Mom really appreciated this, as well as the fact that Caroline's boyfriend's clothes were neat and his manners were perfect. So our mother soon felt very relaxed in Pierce's presence and didn't bother asking these two lovebirds too many questions. I also took Pierce for an adequate guy, and of course, I didn't even have a clue about any of the sorts of weird things that he had on his mind. However, after dinner, when we were all wandering around the house, taking a break before the ice cream, that should have been the finishing touch for this evening. I suddenly found Pierce in my older sister's room, and Caroline was nowhere around. The door to her room was closed, but not completely, so I could quietly peep what Pierce was doing in there. He was inspecting my sister's dresser with quick but careful movements. The chest of drawers, where girls keep the little things from their wardrobe. I was so surprised that I seemed to jerk and hit my elbow against the door. Pierce heard this sound and instantly covered all the traces of his crime. He slammed all the drawers, jumped into the nearest armchair, and pretended that he had been carefully studying something on his smartphone for a long time. And I hurried to return to the living room and sat down at the table. I could not understand why Pierce needed to dig into my sister's clothes while she wasn't looking. Maybe he wanted to steal something? This thought haunted me until the moment when Caroline went out to the courtyard together with Pierce to say goodbye. Then I quickly slipped into my sister's room and dug into her things myself. I only needed to check and see if anything was stolen, of course. But all Caroline's belongings were in place, unless I missed something, which was hardly possible. The thing was that I knew Caroline's room very well, and I remembered almost everything's place. Well, honestly, I just love digging into my sister's stuff, even though she strictly forbade me to even come close to her room under the threat of a terrible retribution. For this reason, I couldn't say a word about what I saw neither to my sister nor to my mother. Besides, I simply did not have suitable evidence, and Caroline would rather kill me for violating the ban than to think that her boyfriend did something weird or even illegal. Nevertheless, I decided that I would keep an eye on Pierce, and if he did something like this again, I would catch him. After this first successful evening in our house, Pierce began to come over frequently, so I had no problem keeping an eye on him. Sometimes he came to our home before my mom returned from work, and sometimes he even came alone, without Caroline, if their college schedule did not match up. On one of those days, Pierce arrived an hour and a half earlier than my sister. I was too busy trying to make a video for TikTok, so I let Pierce in without giving it any thought. Like, if he was going to steal something, that was the best time. It occurred to my mind later, when I realized that Pierce had been sitting in Caroline's bedroom for more than an hour, and he was very quiet. I tried eavesdropping, but it did not help me understand what he might be doing. So I pulled the door handle, but the door was locked. I heard an alarmed, "Wait a minute," and realized that it was the perfect moment to catch this thief. Pierce did not know that the lock in Caroline's room was faulty, and opened on both sides. I opened the door holding my smartphone with the camera switched on to capture evidence, and I saw Pierce wearing my sister's bra. Apart from that, he was wearing only boxers and tight jeans, which he was hastily trying to pull off. But his attempts were in vain because these were my sister's very tight jeans. Of course, I did not expect anything like this, so I screamed with surprise, dropping the phone, and tried to run out of the room. but Pierce grabbed my hand and closed the door from the inside. Pierce tried to calm me down and convince me that everything was fine. He was not doing anything wrong, and I just need to listen to him. I was still in shock and just climbed up in my sister's chair. I turned my head away, giving Pierce a chance to change into his own male clothes, and got ready to listen to his story. At first, Pierce said that he was not gay and that he loves my sister Caroline, so I did not need to think that he was somehow deceiving my sister. Honestly, that bothered me the least. I wanted to understand why Pierce had put on her clothes. Then Pierce told me that he was always interested in trying on purely feminine clothes. He shared an apartment with a guy, so there was no chance for him to do it at home. As for our house, with Caroline's clothes lying around in a free room, what I had to understand was, to put it simply, that Pierce could not resist the temptation, and finally decided to get this experience. But I felt like this was wrong. If Pierce wanted to put on a bra, I wouldn't mind. But why would he invade my sister's personal space? Pierce noticed my distrustful look and repeated that he was not doing anything wrong, and that he was ready to offer me some pocket money for my silence. I didn't need money. My mother was kind and generous, and she always gave me pocket money when I needed it. But still, I agreed with Pierce that I would take a few days to think about it. Soon I made my decision. I wouldn't tell anything to Caroline, and Pierce, in return, would fulfill several wishes for me, like a real fairy godmother in my sister's bra. For example, I'd wanted to go to Disney World for a very long time, but my mother said it was too wasteful. I thought she just did not have time for this, and the excuse about money was probably less awkward for her. Pierce agreed, so the next weekend we went with him and Caroline from St. Petersburg to Orlando. It was very cool, although Caroline was furious about having to spend time with the bobblehead. That's me. But she perceived Pierce's interest in her younger sister as a sign of his serious intentions. If only Caroline knew that his serious intentions were around her skirts, not her deep inner world. After Disney World, I found a certain enjoyment in working with Pierce. He fulfilled several of my other wishes without any problems, and I agreed to help him with something, also without any problems. The thing was that Pierce was not completely satisfied. Caroline's clothes were too small and did not fit him well. I did not immediately understand what this dude needed, because my clothes were even smaller in size, and they would have been even tighter to him. But then Pierce said bluntly, he wanted me to steal some of my mother's things for him. Our mom is a pretty tall woman, so her clothes would fit Pierce's athletic figure quite well. Of course, I hesitated. I did not mind helping Pierce do something to my surly sister Caroline, but now I had to help this dude invade my mom's private space. And I didn't want to argue with Pierce either, and I finally took some of my mom's clothes from her closet. I handed Pierce her old jeans, a couple of blouses, dresses, bras. Yes, I even handed him some pairs of my mom's underwear. Pierce promised me that he would never try all of this on in our house, so I just struggled not to think about what he was going to be doing with all this clothing. Everything was fine for a while, but soon I got caught. Mom caught me right at the moment while I was digging into a drawer with her underwear. Of course Mom was surprised. She demanded an explanation. I got scared and immediately told her, "This is for Pierce." And then I told her the whole story. But Mom did not believe me. Despite my completely sincere fright, she took me to a psychologist to find out why her 12-year-old daughter was showing interest in her underwear. I was lucky with the psychologist. She immediately realized that I just could not speak openly in my mother's presence. So she gave her explanation. Something about the puberty period. I don't remember for sure. And after that, when we were alone, I was able to openly tell this woman about Pierce. Unlike my mother, the psychologist believed my story, and for some reason, she got terribly angry. She asked for Pierce's phone number, and in a few days after the session, I found out that the psychologist was contacting him. She was furious that Pierce had involved a child. Well, that meant me, in his dirty games, and even threatened him saying that she would call the police. I learned all this when Caroline came home from Pierce's and nearly killed me. As I expected, my sister immediately sided with her boyfriend, accused me of lying and slander, and demanded that I do something about it. But I didn't lie! I didn't want to cause problems for Pierce, but I also didn't want problems with my mom for myself. Mom was terribly angry at Caroline for the way she treated me, and said that Caroline was just picking on me. After that, Caroline packed up her things and moved out to live with Pierce. Pierce must have been offended, and he never contacted me again. Of course, I am sad that we will no longer go to Disney World. But I knew for sure that Caroline dragged a lot of her underwear to Pierce's apartment. So I'm sure he's hardly bored.